I think the best thing that we can do is to, first of all, work with the large-scale producers that are large emitters and help them to use research and technology to get their emissions under control. But I think the best thing that we can do across the board is to encourage small-scale farming and organic farming and local food production. There's a great organization called Sustainable South Osborne. They're actually having their dinner, I think, on Sunday this week, so free plug for them. I assume probably a lot of people are going already. What I really like about them is they're reclaiming urban space to grow food, right? They have plots, they have an orchard. But why that's important to me is, yes, it'll help with reducing our carbon footprint. But I think if we go back to like Naomi Klein and other thinkers on climate justice, part of the challenge that we have is not just moving the metrics, it's also about changing our relationship to the places where we live. And that's what we need to do. And so Sustainable South Osborne, I really like, and I told this to them directly, I really like it because it gives people in an urban environment a chance to have a relationship with the land. It gives people in an urban environment a chance to have a relationship with your food. And when you start to do those things, you think differently about your impact on the earth. You're probably centered and your mental health improves also. But you also think more differently about your impact on the environment, your impact on the food. You probably think more about eating more vegan and vegetarian. And so I would really like to see more of those kind of small-scale, urban, rural, ag operations, more farmers markets, and let's bring it into the schools. So from a young age, every Manitoban begins to think about our relationship to what we eat and our relationship to this beautiful place on earth.
We do. We need to strongly move towards regenerative agriculture, towards organic agriculture, towards small-scale farming. That's clear. It's one of the fastest growing sectors of the agricultural market and creates a real opportunity to get young farmers back out to the land. Also creates opportunities, as Mr. Canoe said, for urban farming and small-scale farming. We need to realize that the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in agriculture is coming from the application of nitrogen as a chemical fertilizer. And so we need to work on ways of reducing the application rates. If we could just get application rates back to 1990 levels, which is within my own lifetime, that would be about 1.1 megatons of reduction. One of the things we also could look at, or at least I've had a few people mention, we might even have potential to push towards green manure further methods of basically replacing it, also of protecting a land mass. We have a lot of marginal lands we could pull out of production. That might also help us in the other area where we have a glut of grain, beef, and pork in global markets, and we use far too much chemical fertilizers to put farmers into a negative income situation. And therefore we need to be supporting our small-scale farmers. That's really the way that it's going to work, and so that's what we need to do, is reduce fertilizer application rates and probably pull marginal lands out of production and perhaps even reduce herd sizes, but focus more on a local market where the total value is captured, so there's actually more economic opportunities. So that's really what I think people need to realize, is we can actually have more economic opportunities with less production rather than an overproduction model, which actually pushes prices down, hurts farmers, and then costs us a bunch through agri-stability insurance.
We have a section of our plan that's dedicated to this, about how we can harness the power of agriculture to fight climate change. As was mentioned before, nitrous oxide is a greenhouse gas 300 times more powerful than carbon dioxide. And if we can reduce it significantly, which you can, and we have a plan to do that, it would make a huge difference in Manitoba's greenhouse gas emissions. It would be the equivalent of taking every car and truck off the road without taking every car and truck off the road. So part of this is also to work with farmers and producers to make sure that they are providing environmental services. One is to work on regenerative agriculture, as we mentioned, because that enhances and restores soil health. We've also promised $500 million to improve Lake Winnipeg, to save Lake Winnipeg, not just to fix the North End treatment plant, which needs fixing, but to work with citizen scientists through the Lake Winnipeg foundation who find hotspots, because it's actually easier to find hotspots of phosphorus production rather than trying to focus on every farmer everywhere, and address those and reduce those. There's a huge amount of potential here, but also we can work with farmers to restore wetlands, we can work with farmers to plant trees, to, again, pull more CO2 from the air so that we're helping restore the carbon balance of Manitoba generally. And this is an area where farmers should be our allies, and that we can work with them because there is huge potential. And the regenerative agriculture movement, again, it's very strong, and they've said, look, one of the problems with the way we farm right now is that it strips carbon out of the soil more and more. And if you want to have a sustainable farm, you have to put it back. And in fact, we need to think beyond just sustainable, because that sort of just means keeping going with the status quo. We need to think about renewal and giving back more to the land and more to the water than we're taking out. Thank you.